So you've probably heard this from your pediatrician, maybe your friends, maybe on Facebook or your own family, right? Just wait it out. They're going to grow out of it. They're not going to eat Cheerios forever. But what if they don't? What if you're not seeing them make progress? What if waiting is actually making it worse? Okay, so I'm Christine Miroddi Yoder, pediatric feeding therapist, creator of our Unlocking Mealtimes method, and someone who's helped hundreds of families figure out what nobody else could. Is this a picky phase, or is this an actual problem that we need to be addressing? Because here's the truth. Sometimes waiting is perfectly fine when it's the right kind of picky. But other times, waiting only delays the help that your child really needs, and things can get much worse much quicker. So today I'm going to walk you through the 3 signs that it's developmentally okay to wait, and the 3 red flags that mean please act now. So you can stop second guessing yourself and feel confident about what your child needs next. Because I can promise you, the people on Facebook, even your family, yes, even your pediatrician probably is not giving you the exact right advice for your child because they don't have all of the training that we have, right? They don't know about some of the things that we are evaluating and look for and know are red flags, right? A lot of times, especially pediatricians really just are looking at their weight and saying, okay, their weight is fine, so don't worry about it. But weight is not really a measure of how healthy you are or if there's a really big problem. And sometimes we then have families that come to us with only 3 foods left in their diet. That is not even an exaggeration. That happens more frequently than you would care to know. But that's because they kept being told that they're going to outgrow it. But all the parents saw were foods dropping week by week, month by month. Their list was shrinking. And everyone was saying, don't worry about it. But now we have a really big problem because they were in the red flag group, not the it's okay to wait it out group. So if you're unsure, stay tuned for this episode. This is going to really help you hopefully tease out which end of that spectrum you and your child are on and what steps you're going to have to take next. Okay, so let's start with 3 signs that waiting it out might be all right, because it can be, right? Okay, so if your child is, this is our first sign. If your child is between 2 to 4 years old and they're still exploring, but they're being a little bit more selective, that's pretty normal. That's a typical time frame that kids are going to get pickier. Between 2 and 4, they're going to be asserting their independence. They're going to be saying no more. I'm sure you've heard that. But that includes saying no more to food, right? Because having that independence and being able to say no is very exciting and liberating. So they're going to be able to say no to things. And one of the things that they control a lot is food, because you can't actually make someone swallow something, right? It's really, that would be like almost like torture to like literally shove food down somebody's throat, right? You really can't make them eat. So they're learning about this, like independence, control, being assertive. So there is that's just like kind of like the normal developmental process. But here's the key difference. That developmental stage of picky eating isn't about fear. They're not meant to be afraid of food in this time period. It's about control, routine, preferences shifting fast, right? So they might suddenly reject some foods they used to eat, but they're still eating a variety of foods. They're still willing to look at and touch new foods. They can still tolerate having them on their plate, okay? If they're eating more than 20 foods across all food groups and they're not showing signs of fear and stress, they're joining family meals, you can likely ride this weight out for now. And using some more simple strategies, some more general principles that you might find in those general types of picky eating courses, those will probably serve you very well. Okay. So sign number 2 that waiting it out with picky eating might be okay is that meal times are calm. Even if their food list is like a little bit limited, right? If they can sit at the table, they're handling, different foods nearby, they're eating their preferred foods, they're not stressed out at all. They might say some no to some new things, right? But they're not gagging, screaming, melting down, right? If meal times are predictable, emotionally stable, safe, you've got a good foundation to gently start exposure over time, right? It doesn't require urgent intervention. So these are all positive things, right? We want like a nice, calm, relaxed meal time. And again, fear should not be creeping in there. Okay, number 3 reason, number 3 sign that you're able to wait out your child's picky eating is that their food list is pretty stable. It's not shrinking, and certainly not shrinking in any significant ways. They might have a narrower range of food, but it's been stable for several months. It's not really declining, and they're growing well. They're tolerating new food exposure in the room. You probably don't need anything immediate. That said, stability doesn't really mean progress. So even if it's okay to wait, it's still worth being proactive with some low pressure strategies, right? So in these cases, we're going to really keep an eye on things. But right now, for these 3 things, we're not like very concerned. We don't need to start feeding therapy. The general strategies that you can find on Instagram and on these podcasts are going to work really well for you because your child's not fearful. They're just a developmentally typical child, right, who wants to exert their control. But let's move into the 3 signs that this is not a phase. And it can occur within that developmental period, right? It can occur between 2 and 4. But these are signs that this is a little bit more of a problem than just their normal development, okay? If their list is shrinking to under 15 to 20 foods, that is not a good number, okay? Most kids will naturally expand their food variety, especially after age 3. If yours is going in the opposite direction, or they're stuck eating between 15 and 20 foods, or even less, that is a red flag. This level of restriction usually means that there's something deeper going on. And of course, right, if you're new, you probably haven't heard this, but if you're not new, I always talk about the 4 pillars, right? Something deeper going on usually means that there's an oral motor skill delay, sensory processing challenges, gut inflammation or discomfort, or some sort of food-related trauma or anxiety. Okay, waiting here can make it worse because avoidance is just reinforcing itself. The longer they stay in that rut, the deeper it gets, and the more those foods start to drop off. So if you're under 20 foods, that's not a good zone to be in. And we don't want their list to get smaller and smaller until they're left with less than 5 foods. I can promise you that from a lot of experience and seeing a lot of kids, when you get to that place, your options are very limited. Okay, nutrition-wise, of course, nutrition-wise, but you also are going to be taking a lot more time to bring back their diet. You're going to probably be in our program for over a year. Okay, versus when you have a handful of foods, even if you are starting in that 15 to 20, that's actually, we could work with that. And sometimes even in that range, we can get you kind of in and out in 3 to 6 months, depending on how consistent you are, how long this problem has been a, 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 problem, right? So that's why we say, don't wait. please take action if this is a red flag for you, because we don't want you to get to that point where they're left with nothing. It just is going to be a bigger uphill battle for everyone. Okay. So red flag number 2, our next sign that this is not just a picky eating phase. Mealtimes are full of stress, meltdowns, gagging, right? Crying. If they feel like a battle, or your child is regularly covering their ears, refusing to come to the table, gagging, just looking or talking about foods, that is not developmentally normal picky eating at all. That is their nervous system is in fight or flight, total distress. When kids aren't just disinterested, they're actively distressed about mealtimes, it is time to step in with support. We have to address their sensory systems, emotional safety, because like I said before, that avoidance is going to reinforce itself. The longer they stay in it, the more they're self-reinforcing, like this whole. So what you see as the behavior of, oh my God, they're being ridiculous. They just gag every time they even look at a food, right? That's got to just be a behavior thing. That can't be real. You don't gag on, like, that's just ridiculous, right? I've heard many parents try to tell me that, but that is their sensory system being completely overwhelmed, right? So that's their visual system. Visually, they're looking at a food and it's giving them a physical response, right? Which is not typical, right? So again, we want to address this sort of nervous system upset as soon as possible before it kind of trickles into other foods and their list grows shorter again. Okay, so red flag number 3 that you need to step in and take action on your picky eater is they're avoiding an entire food group. Or can't tolerate mixed textures. If your child avoids all proteins or all fruits, or if they only eat dry, crunchy carbs, that's not a preference. It is a pattern, and they can get very stuck in that pattern and very comfortable. And there's usually a reason that they have those specific restrictions, right? A lot of times it's because of a sensory or oral motor issue. That's a lot of times what it is. But I also want you to be aware of that kids can also get stuck refusing those mixed textures as well, like pasta with sauce or veggies and soup. Inability to chew meat or tolerate soft, slimy textures very often crop up here. They might have fear around combinations of food. So sandwiches are just going to be way off the table, like bread with the actual stuff on the inside. Nope, going to need to have that separated out. These patterns can signal underlying oral motor and sensory issues that need really some specific strategies for them to resolve, not just exposure. Because that's kind of like if you broke your foot and you're supposed to be going to physical therapy to strengthen that muscle and get that muscle functioning optimally so you could walk again. That would be like showing you pictures of people walking and videos of people walking and be like, okay, are you going to walk yet? It's like, well, no, we didn't do anything with any of the muscles to help them walk. How are they going to walk better? Just by showing them walking. That's not how that works, right? Well, it's kind of the same principle with food. How are we going to help their muscles in their mouth chew food better? Meat requires a lot of chewing endurance. And I'm not talking about chicken nuggets, because a lot of times we get kids who will eat chicken nuggets, but that's not the same as like a piece of chicken or a steak, okay, which requires significantly more chewing endurance because a chicken nugget is like pre-ground meat. So that's like on a good day. Like that's if it's like real chicken anyway. But it's not really the same. Like it's already like basically part broken down for them. So of course it's going to be easier for them to eat something like a chicken nugget. Right. So again, we can't fix oral motor issues with just exposure. Like showing them the food 20 times is not going to make their mouth any stronger. We actually have to do targeted specific strategies with the specific muscle groups that are affected to help them to do better, right? So these patterns we see a lot. But let's recap what we've covered today, okay? So you know when it's okay to wait out your picky eater and when it's time to act, right? So it might be okay to wait them out if they're a picky eater, if they're between 2 and 4 and they're still exploring foods, but without that fear, okay? If meal times are calm, even if their food lists are a little limited. And number 3, their food range is narrow but stable and it's not shrinking. Okay, that's very important. We don't want it to shrink. But here is the red flags. Let's go over when it's time to take action if your child is a picky eater. If their food list is shrinking or stuck under 15 to 20 foods, that's not a good zone to be in. If meal times are full of stress, meltdowns, gagging, that's not a great place to be in either. We want to help regulate their nervous system, and that will require more specific help. Or number 3, if they avoid entire food groups or can't tolerate mixed textures, that is a classic sign that there is some oral motor and sometimes a little combination of oral motor and sensory issues that we need to tease out and give specific recommendations for your child for. So the bottom line is that waiting can be okay, but only if progress is happening naturally. If your child is stuck, stressed, their menu is shrinking, it's really time to do something different. And waiting is just not the right call here. No matter what people are saying around you, I'm telling you from experience, as somebody who only really does this, this is my whole world, right? I've seen so many kids with this, but if these red flags are there, it is not resolving on its own. I mean, the chances would be astronomically slim. I'm sure I could be proven wrong, but do you want to really wait until there's, 2 to 3 foods left in their diet? Because when we have that, I'm telling you, the time it takes, the effort to overcome that hurdle, to get foods back into their repertoire, it just takes more time and effort. It takes more money, time, and effort on your part as well. So I am literally trying to help save you some stress and some money by just addressing these things as soon as you see these red flags, because it is really important to get that help early. If you want to shorten the therapy time, make things easier on you and on your child. Okay. So if you're not sure where to begin, take our free quiz, find out if your child is fearful, stuck, or in the curious stage, and we'll tell you what support would fit them best. What's the next best step based on their profile, right? So that will help guide us and help us help you better of where to direct you, right? Because giving you strategies that are very general for somebody who is really fearful is not going to work very well, right? So that's why we don't do cookie cutter advice. It's all very individualized and based on what your child needs, because that's really the only way we have found to successfully help kids is tailoring everything specific to them, right? So I hope this was helpful. I hope you were able to figure out exactly where your child lands in here. And if your child is more on the developmental side, amazing. That's great news. If your child is on the red flag side, don't completely panic. That's what we're here for. That's why I have the podcast. It's why I made the courses. It's why I do what I do. It's because we don't want kids to end up here and stay here. We want them to thrive. We want them to have all of the nutrients and food that they can. Food is your fuel. You need to eat every single day, several times a day. And it's really hard to go through life eating only a handful of foods. We don't want that for anybody. We want them to love food, and we want them to feel confident with food, and we want them to be healthy. So, that is our goal and our mission. So, if you need our help, we are here. Otherwise, we will see you next week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope, you have a great meal together tonight. Bye.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.